Hey everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern from Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and it is time for a new game show podcast. If you're looking for the match game, the dating game, the Wheel of Fortune, or Jeopardy in the wrong spot, as you know, GAME is an acronym for my functional movement exam, creative active mood exam, so we figured we'd name the podcast after it. Today we have a very intimate show. We're a one camera show here today, and I have a very special guest, very close friend of mine. He's now the new proud owner of the Diamond Revolution, which we'll get into. But Mike Freire is here. Mike, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
You may notice the two of us together because we also do another podcast called the Prove It Live podcast, which we talk about baseball and sports. Game show, we talk a lot of what is pertinent to really the physical therapy realm. And you're probably wondering why Mike is on here today as a baseball instructor. Well, as you know, I treat a lot of baseball-related athletes and pitchers in my Velocity RX program. But Mike and I are both trying to prevent injuries. So I brought Mike on to really talk about pitching today and really one specific, I'm going to put him on the spot, one specific move that I think is the cause for all of these injuries. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Mike. Thanks for coming on this impromptu podcast today.
Absolutely. It's fun being a guest.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your history, and how we know each other and what we're doing here?
Sure. So that's a lot to sort of squeeze in. And, so known you, Kevin, for got to be close to 30 years now, which is pretty crazy.
Yes.
Former teammates.
Yes.
Right? And
championship teammates.
Championship teammates. When I first met Kevin, you were still in school for physical therapy.
Yeah.
And being involved in baseball since obviously we were both little kids. Pretty much around that time, maybe a few years after that, probably my early 20s, I started getting into baseball instruction and coaching. I've had, still currently have on the surface, looks like an AU program. I really hate that stigma, but that's what it looks like because we do have teams and we play baseball games, but the emphasis is on the training. It's called the Minuteman Baseball, and now converted to Diamond Revolution. And it's really just a training model. The idea that the kids aren't really just joining our team, we're joining theirs. And that's sort of the difference is that, that's how I see it is that, me and my staff, we're joining the team of that player to make sure they achieve their goals. Whether it be varsity high school or college, usually it's college, right? We've just had it recently in May, our 80th college commit.
Wow.
So we've only been doing this for 11, 12 years.
That's really what it comes down to, getting someone to play at the next level.
That's really what it is, yeah.
I mean, there's only so many how many pros you were? I mean, you have to be born with that, right? I mean,
yeah, there's so many things to get you to that level. You know what I mean? To big leagues. I mean, so many things have to go right. You have to have good luck. You have to have, staying healthy and being seen by the right people. So we can't promise that, obviously. But I look at it, if we get a kid that's 13 years or younger, I can almost promise them that we're going to get them into college at some level, Division III, whatever.
That's what it's about, right? Getting kids to play at the next level.
You can learn to be good at this sport. That's what I learned really early on. And so, it's why you have Jose Altuve, who's like 5'7". He's really shorter than that even, right? As an MVP. And then you have a guy like CC Sabathia, who's 6'11", 6'10", and he's an MVP. And everything in between. So you can learn how to be good at this sport. And that's really, I think, the separating marker, because lots of programs and teams can recruit kids that are already really good and going somewhere. We take kids that are the 7 hitter on their little league team and their town team and make them, number 2 hitters on the varsity high school.
You've got a great quote. Let me see if I can set it up. When someone calls and they'll ask, well, where did so-and-so play?
The instructor.
Right? Yeah. We're the instructor. What is your response to that? Which is this is key.
This is actually a true story. So before I had, my own program, I, worked at several other facilities and programs, and I get calls. And I was the GM of this one place. And we had a pitching instructor there who we both know. Someone would call up and look for a lesson. And so I booked them with the open person, and this instructor in particular was the one I was setting this customer up with. I said, I can get you in on Saturday, whatever, just this isn't real. I don't remember the real time, but Saturday at 11 o'clock, and he's with blank. And they go, oh, okay, that's great. Can you tell me where, a little bit about blank, where he played? And I said, well, I can tell you all about him, but you're asking the wrong question. The question you should be asking is, where are his students playing? Right? Where are his clients
There it is.
playing? And that's the important part.
That is the absolutely important part.
Because this has been lots of really good players who they're not great coaches or instructors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, Mike, I want to get into this epidemic. With COVID, the word epidemic, pandemic has been beaten into the ground. But, we did Prove It Live show about a year or so ago, and we actually quantified. There was a website that actually quantified how many arm injuries there were.
Mm.
And without going into specific detail, there were more in one particular year. I don't know if it's 2021, something like that. There were double the amount of pitching injuries compared to football injuries in the NFL. That means there was twice as many pitchers on the disabled list as there were NFL players in a sport where they're trying to kill you.
High impact.
Yes. So, on the spot, I'm gonna, we both teach pitching. You have taken a lot of what I do into your instruction, but there is a concept, a phrase that people are using that I think is the number one cause of all shoulder and arm injuries. And that is something that I don't know if it started in golf, but certainly you will see golfers finish their swing with their lower body and their hands are still here, which is great. That's called the word is hip to shoulder separation. That's great.
HTSS if you're cool on that.
But the club is eventually doing the work. The club is taking the torque. The club is bending. The club is taking all the stress.
Which it's designed to do.
Correct. Same with a baseball bat, right? But now we have this hip to shoulder separation where we're finished with our lower body as much as you can, and our arm is lagging behind. I think it doesn't take a genius to see that that's a problem for me. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a big problem. And
now that people are gonna go down like we're snake oil salesmen or we're crazy. I mean, I'm just looking at my own two eyes, like, oh my god, right? It's actually the other way around.
It's actually the other way around. And look, it's easy to go with the grain, right? It's easy to say the popular thing, right? Because typically not challenge much on it. But the truth is, you don't want to isolate, as you know. I mean, all this stuff I learned from you, but the body is designed to move a specific way. It's in sequence. And when you break the chain of that sequence, you isolate something else. So if I turn my hips all the way and I intentionally leave my upper body back, now the upper body has to start again.
And let me is that what's being actually instructed word for word? What are the in the issue? What have you heard? Like I see that and I turn the page. I try not to comment on what in God's name are you doing, but so what's the actual instruct? What are they telling players to do?
So of course this isn't everybody that teaches this, but I have seen it taught where where they're intentionally trying to turn the hips, leave the upper body back, and then have the upper body go. They're really creating as much separation between your back hip as a pitcher and your back shoulder. As much. In fact, there was a video. It was like a reel a few years ago of Dak Prescott going down the football field.
Doing his little shimmy.
And that blew it up even more because see, Dak Prescott's doing it, football quarterback's doing it. Now no one even knows why he was doing that. I would argue that he was really just doing it to make sure that he was practicing moving his hips first, right? And so getting the proper sequence. But the way I see it is that you don't want anything lagging back any longer than it's physiologically supposed to, right? So because when you throw, quarterback, pitcher, it doesn't matter, the tennis player, there is going to be a lag between your hip and your shoulder if you're turning in the proper sequence.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be trying to create more distance between those two things unnaturally.
So now getting back to that's a good segue. Zach Prescott, I remember that video, right? But here's what everyone knows: when the ball is thrown short and it's intercepted,
Right.
every color guy in the NFL will say he threw that off his back foot, right? So every quarterback in the world comes through and walks and moves that back leg forward. So what he was doing, he was definitely not practicing throwing because he brings his back leg forward, right? Because if you throw off your back foot, the ball is going to be short. But now with this hip to shoulder separation, they're actually telling you to anchor or in some cases drag your back foot, which is to me is inhibiting natural rotation of the spine.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
so in football, which is a heavier ball, okay, your back leg is coming forward. But now in baseball, they're anchoring that. So you have that strike against you. You have your arm way behind you. Like, Mike, what's the history of this nonsense? Like, do you know where this is? There some inventor of hip to shoulder separation?
I don't know who the first person that really started beating that drum. Okay, and obviously whoever it was, we might not never know because the first person we're going to see is the one with a bunch of followers. So he could have, who knows who came first. But I can tell you this, that I know it's from people studying videos, right? Slow motion analysis, video analysis of the greatest, hardest throwers, I should say, in baseball history. And they would look at it and try to say, oh my God, look at Nolan. His hips are kind of his shoulders way back here. If you have incredibly fast hips, okay, which all of the great pitchers, hard throwers, and all of the hardest hitters have, you're gonna see more hip to shoulder separation because it's gonna take more time for it to turn. But that's their body working naturally. To try to mimic that doesn't mean, even if you were to be able to create the same separation with your hip and your shoulder, doesn't mean you're gonna all of a sudden throw 105 miles an hour like Nolan Ryan.
No,
right? But that's where it started. It's like just looking at pictures.
And again, like you can't tell things from from a video or a still picture, but kinetic chain wise, as we all know, we have to move proximal to distal. Right. So as we turn, you're going to get that stretch or whatever they try, but we need to finish that movement and then move our arm into a position of gravity assistance.
Yes.
To me, if you throw against gravity, and we see it a lot with long toss, which I am, another thing I get hammered for, I am not a proponent of long toss because it mimics nothing that's functional, right? Because most of the time it's not done correctly. People are winding up, the arm is way behind.
Your entire angle,
and I did get in this back and forth on Twitter with a guy from Florida who literally told me he has been training athletes forever and never has he seen a person change their throwing mechanics when doing long toss. And I will say this, I've never seen someone who doesn't change their mechanics. I mean, even if I said nothing, even spine tilt, right? So he's saying there was no change. So, and I don't want to say that I'm not a proponent of throwing the ball. I think you have to throw the ball. But these parabolas that they're throwing, that's not functional, right? I mean, isn't functional to stay on a line, and if it's a skip toss or we're slamming the ball into the ground? Am I crazy? What do you think?
I've done long toss for many years. I think I do it a little bit differently. There should be no arc at long toss.
There we go.
So you want to back up when you throw 120 feet, don't add arc. You want to throw 200 feet, no arc. If you can't do it, let it hop, let it bounce.
There we go.
So and I've always been okay with that, but
that's not all what they teach.
That's not what they teach. No, and we also know that doesn't translate. I remember, I think it was Jaeger who was talking about this was years ago when it first started, 300 feet equals 90 miles an hour, something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing it. Not sure, not exact, but we know that doesn't always translate. You have guys in baseball, Dwight Evans, Corey Snyder, and Raul Mondesi, who could throw the ball with a pro hop and a jump on
Bo Jackson, Dave Winfield, Dave Parker, all these guys. And we don't see that now. We don't see throwers now. We just named 6, 7 guys. There's not 6 or 7 guys in the majors who can throw like that.
From a right field corner and in the ballpark on a dime. Yeah. But that didn't translate to pitching.
Right. So now that brings me to the next subject. The Yankees called up their phenom center fielder, Jason Dominguez, a couple days before the September call-ups, I think. And Mike, he's out for 2024, and this is a surprise to you. Yes, not 2024. It's certainly not a surprise in the Yankee organization, which has the highest injury rate in all of baseball. Yeah, why is he out? Because he tore his UCL and he needs Tommy John surgery. And this certainly is not the first in the Yankee organization. Got to go through Aaron Hicks. But the only thing I can see of an outfielder who may have to throw it to home plate twice a month, right, in a game situation, the only thing I can think of is this unbelievable load of long toss and then the unbelievable load of plyo balls. We had a mutual friend of ours who was sitting in Fenway Park the other day, and a doubleheader, every guy from the Yankees who warmed up was throwing plyo balls up against the wall. Now, this is an organization that had an elbow fracture last year, has countless Tommy John, countless shoulder injuries. Michael, 2 questions. Is there a correlation between this load in position players, and why the hell are people throwing plyo balls?
I think it's the concept. So I can follow this logic, right? So all right, if I throw something heavy, right, then I'll be able to throw something light with that much greater force, right? And I've been there. I've done before knowing this stuff back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember this, but I would our old teammate, friend of ours, passionately known as Bezo, was a candlepin bowler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Candlepin bowling, for those who don't know, in New England, there was this type of bowling.
It's like a bocce ball.
It's like a bocce ball.
Yep.
And I would warm up throwing those candlepin balls, and this first time I got the baseball, it literally felt like styrofoam. Like styrofoam. You couldn't even control it at first. So you see that, wow, this feels like it's nothing.
Right.
So I think that's probably where it's done. It's why it's done. The reason I'll tell you it's done is to strengthen the arm. So the arm's stronger, and if your arm is stronger, then you'll throw harder.
Mm-hmm. So, for those professionals listening, we know that the arm, once we get past, as it's working in a gravity-assisted position, is working eccentrically. So as we know, we've got concentric, which is, the beach muscles, the muscle fibers are coming together. Isometric, they're staying here. But eccentric, they are lengthening, kind of like I jump up for a rebound and I land. My muscles are eccentrically, both stabilizing and elongating. So that's what's happening when we, with the shoulder. So it's the brakes.
Yeah.
So the next one we had, well, everyone has a comeback to all this. So here was the next piece of information I got. If we strengthen the brakes, you will go faster. Or someone else said to me, you can only go as fast as your braking system. So, of course, then I said, Odell Beckham Jr., who has a non-contact ACL blowout in the Super Bowl because he couldn't stop. So his braking system went haywire. So, Mike, the strength is that hold water? Does that theory hold water?
I when you told me that, I was really sort of confused, and look, I don't claim to be the the know-all, but things one thing I have learned over the years is things have to make sense.
Mm.
They have to make sense. Everything does have a solution that you go, okay, well, yeah, that jives. You can connect the dots.
2 plus 2 has got to be 4.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, I immediately thought, and I know it's not the same, but I'm like, well, by that method, okay, that theory, I know a car is different than a human, but if the brake line goes in a car, then the car is automatically going to stop because it can't go faster, the brakes will allow. But in a human, right, we obviously know that's not true because we see injuries happen all the time because the braking system breaks down because they were going too fast for that braking system or that movement.
I mean, no one ever gets hurt jumping up. It's always
right.
landing.
That's right.
So and then, I come from a martial art background, and if I was to break this table or a block of bricks, in a million years, I wouldn't start by weighting my hammer fist to do that, right? I'd be working on my core and my legs because, again, the not the Kevin McGovern and the Mike Freire law, kinesiological laws for moving proximal to distal. And to get that force is that we are just turning our body to slam that home.
And I would guess too, with that in mind, if the distal is stronger than the proximal, you're gonna have a problem.
Sure,
and you're gonna throw a lot slower.
You are,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's one way.
Yeah.
I always said this. The ball. A baseball's 5 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
It's not heavy, and you don't need a ton of strength. If that were the case, Ronnie Coleman, right?
Arnold Schwarzenegger,
time Mr. Universe would have thrown the ball 200 miles an hour.
And that goes back to our next one, Mike, about arm strength. There are people out there that say the end all be all is arm strength. Again, Ronnie Coleman, Hulk Hogan, Arnold Schwarzenegger. What you're then saying is their 24-inch pythons are impervious to throwing injuries, which is completely false.
Yep.
So, lastly, Mike, how does we are bombarded. We've been sitting here, your computer's flickering, my phone is going off. How do parents clear out the noise and be like, okay, I can trust this guy to help my kid be a better pitcher? Like, what are some things to look for, or what are some stops? I'm immediately I'm out. Like, what words would you like? I'll say the first thing, like word salad. To teach someone something, first you've got to understand it. Then you've got to be able to put it in the language of a 5th grader. Not that I'm diminishing someone's intelligence, but to be able to explain it in clear, concise, so that everybody, whether you're speaking English, Russian, Hebrew, can understand it. So my first thing is, if you see word salad, run. Because word salad is just cut and paste, meaning it's mumbo jumbo that you're like, what is that? Because I see that a lot.
It's almost like they're trying to, mask. You should be able to prove yourself by what you can do for the player. Mm-hmm. They should have players that they can point to that they've helped succeed. Mm-hmm. And whatever that goal is, if it's a player in general reaching college, you should be able to point to people that you've helped put there. If it's keeping somebody healthy throwing, you should be able to point to some clients that you've helped, either come back from injury or remain healthy to the career, helping them increase. That's the big thing too, I would say, because it's hard. You're not going to know. And the word salad is designed to impress, right? So they're saying that to make you go, oh wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about.
Right.
But they may be able to ace an anatomy class. It doesn't mean that they can teach healthy throwing. It doesn't mean that they can teach pitching, because the thing that we just last saying about the strength or strengthening the arm. I know there's people out there who go, hey, dummies, we're not talking about building big biceps and triceps. We're talking about strengthening, the smaller muscles, and building the rotator cuff and the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus. But you can't get as big as a guy like Ronnie Coleman without strengthening those two. So that it still doesn't fly. But yeah, it's hard. I'll be the first one to admit it's hard to really decipher it. Just really do your research and look at their body of work. I think would be the best.
Yeah, maybe even interview someone that they've coached.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, Mike, how does someone get in touch with you? So you are currently we're currently working on a project together, but Mike, I know, is taking players for both teams, and what he's getting a lot of call for, which maybe the world is trending, is for development coaching. So, Michael, tell us how someone can get in touch with you for that.
Best way if you want to reach out to me is from my work email, which is Mike Freire at farm, THEFARM, farm, BPI, B is a boy, P is a Paul, I.com. There's also the farmbpi.com is the website. You want to check it out and see a little bit more. We are currently, there's some pictures of our old facility on there. We are moving facilities, but you'll get the content nonetheless and learn a little bit about,
Facilities change, knowledge and development does not.
That's correct.
How about that?
That's correct.
All right. Well, Mike, thank you very much for coming on this impromptu podcast. Again, I am Dr. Kevin McGovern. You can reach me at perfectmotionsportstherapy.com. And hopefully by next Friday, my Velocity RX program, which is a one-of-a-kind coaching program, which will keep a player, has the ability, or depending on what program you get, to keep your pitcher, your son, healthy for their entire career with arm care and video and one-on-one coaching. So that's all I got. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll see you next week.